Good evening. Welcome into Chalk Talk. Yes, it is the 2015. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas, wonderful New Year. And, of course, we are refreshed, off of vacation, ready to go. Some great things happening right here in the business with the basketball teams, and we're excited to talk about it. Of course, I can't talk about it with no other than the Captain Carey Rich now joining me on the set. Happy New Year to you. Good to see you, sir. And, of course, I know you got a big smile. You're representing. So, we thought about how we're going to dress today. Of course, we're going to basketball style, old school, since we are the only college basketball show in this state, high school basketball show in this state, and we're going to represent like ballers. So, we're old ballers, or old school ballers, right?
Absolutely, and it's good to be back, and welcome back to the Metro City, Columbia. Where's your Gamecock gear, by the way? I'm
waiting on, Coach Martin, Don Stella, if you got 3X tall, hook a brother up. That's all.
Now, that's putting them on the spot, my friend.
That's putting them on the spot, but I would gladly wear and don that Gamecock basketball gear, no doubt about it. Speaking of South Carolina basketball, of course, as a former player, you got to feel extremely excited because I was away in Texas, then down in New Orleans. But what has happened with this basketball team, Captain? I mean, I'm going back to Clemson with just an outstanding win. Then they taking care of business on the road and the neutral site. They go to my city, the city that I used to own, New York, where the lights never go out, and take care of a top 10 team in Iowa State, winning that ball game, which is a lot of people probably did not give them a chance, Captain. But it's got to be exciting to see what Frank Martin is really doing with this basketball team.
Well, it is exciting. That is exciting for those young kids. It's exciting for Frank Martin, and you're continuing to see a program take a step in the right direction. You talked about Clemson, Oklahoma State. They've won 7 in a row, so confidence-wise, this team is just on another level, and we're now seeing that with the way they play on the floor.
Well, you talk about the young kids. We talk about the Strowmans, and, of course, even Justin getting in there doing some stuff. But talk about this. What is Frank really doing? You're in the inside. What are they doing to make this basketball team competitive and pretty doggone good right now?
Well, defense is their calling card. Defense is what they're going to hang the hat on. He's constantly talked about having length on the wings, and had a chance to speak to Sindarius Thornwell today, and he talked about how confidence-wise, they enjoy taking teams out of what they want to do. He understands the importance of teams initiating their offense with that wing entry pass. And for them, they enjoy not allowing teams to make that first entry pass to initiate offense. And it's just a matter of those guys now having the confidence, having the feel, and just seeing that feeling of uncomfort, that feeling of discomfort that the other teams are now playing with, because offensively, you can't get into a groove. That makes it different. No basketball player wants to be made to feel uncomfortable. I listened to so many of the commentators and so many folks that followed the game on Saturday, and they all talked about Iowa State not being able to make threes. Well, I've never been a believer in really good players missing wide open shots. You miss shots when the other teams make you uncomfortable, and I've always been a proponent of the opponent having something to do with the way you play the game.
Well, when you talk about this basketball team, and I remember you saying this, and you've been saying this for a couple of years, when you have a team like this Gamecock basketball team, they may not have all the big-time offensive juggernauts. They are a team that has to win by playing defense. And speaking of playing defense, here's Coach Martin, his response after the Gamecocks had a big win in Brooklyn.
Extremely excited for these guys next to me and their teammates. I see the work that they put in every single day, and everything that we do, and the belief that they continue to build within each other as to what we're trying to build as a team. It's a whole lot of fun to be around. Real good win for us. Like I told them in the locker room, these are the moments that as a coach you got to kind of be careful, because it's a heck of a win for our program, for our players, and you want them to embrace it. But at the same time, we got Florida Wednesday.
Just like a coach, always thinking about that next game, Florida coming to the CLA here on Wednesday. But Captain, you saw the guys sitting up there next to Frank, guys that are leaders, guys that have been, they went through some tough times, hit some potholes last year, but they are growing up, they're maturing. You talk about a guy like Darius Stoneman, by the way, is a player of the week in the SEC. So you talked about him getting comfortable, getting in this groove, and it seems like he's there now.
Well, I thought Frank Martin handled and coached Sindarius Thornwell in a masterful way down the stretch. He took him out of the game with about 6 minutes to go and held him out to that last media timeout, that final media timeout, which goes around the 4-minute mark. And if you look at how the game ended, he put Sindarius Thornwell in isolation situations down the stretch. So now, taking him out with 6 minutes to go, that allowed him to rest in a game that was very, very fast-paced. Those guys were going up and down, and he needed that rest to be able to close out the game the way he closed it out. I think when it comes to Sindarius' pass, I think there's been somewhat of an underappreciation and underestimation when it comes to what he means to South Carolina and what it meant for Frank Martin to get a guy like Sindarius Thornwell, who, by the way, was offered by programs such as Ohio State, Syracuse. That tells you everything you need to know. You're now seeing this guy play basketball. Even though his shot hasn't been falling, he's still done a terrific job of guarding the basketball. He's still done a good job of rebounding the basketball. And there was a moment in that game, he went to the coaching staff and he said, I wanted to guard their best player. I want to guard George Niang. And that's a guy who's been struggling offensively, but he's never lost confidence in the way he's guarding the basketball, the way he's still finding a way to impact every other facet of the game.
But that's what good players do, right? When they're struggling offensively, they turn around and play great defense, and that in turn get them to some transition points, kind of get their groove back. But he's definitely growing up right under our eyes. Speaking of growing up, when we come back, we're going to switch gears. Frank Martin and his team is doing well, but what about the Lady Gamecocks? Dawn Staley, they still #1, a huge win over LSU, and boy, they're continuing to get better and better. We'll talk about it, and the captain will break it down after this break. Welcome back to Gamecocks. Ladies are doing their thing. Of course, folks say, hey, can Dawn Staley bounce back after a great year last year? Well, I say yes. Getting some McDonald All-Americans in definitely helps the cause, but they're still at #1, a huge win over LSU, captain. And this team continuing to get better. That's what I'm seeing on this basketball team. When people are talking about you and you're on ESPN and, nationally everybody's talking about you, but sometimes as an athlete, we know this, it's hard to keep that motivation. You start getting comfortable in your skin, so to speak, playing basketball. But this team focuses on getting better and better. How does Dawn Staley keep this team focused when they're so good?
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's all about the way she's managed this team thus far. Not only has she managed the expectations that she's embraced, the team has embraced, but she's also managed some really good talent. You're talking about McDonald's All-Americans, and it's really good. It's a lot easier when things are going well, you're winning, but it's still difficult to manage egos, manage so many different personalities, especially when they all are coming off respective high school careers, and she's done a terrific job of doing just that. I was over at the game the other night, the Auburn game, the first conference game, and Pastor, I've been a member of the Gamecock family since the early 90s, and I was just amazed just seeing the crowd, 16,000 people, and I was in disbelief as I looked out and saw so many fans, so many spectators. It's actually become a destination, so to speak. It's become a melting pot. So many people are now wanting to be a part of what Dawn Staley is doing. And I remember back in the day, my friend, where you didn't even need a ticket to get into the women's game. No disrespect to those teams.
Just walk on in.
You just walk on in, you sit anywhere you want to sit. That's no longer the case, and all credit goes to Dawn Staley and the way she's prepared her team, the way she's found a way to manage egos, manage time, and manage so many other things in the form of expectations that now a #1 team like the South Carolina Gamecocks have to deal with.
Well, you got a coach like Dawn Staley, of course, Olympian and one of the all-time greats in that sport. Here's what she had to say, after the game.
I feel like we're making progress. We're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back at times. But any time that you can get a road win in our league is pretty special, and we really haven't had a whole lot of success here at LSU because they really do a good job at taking care of home. They had a good crowd out there. I just thought our players were up for the challenge of, playing hard and trying to get a win.
They were up for the challenge. Why? Because that lady that was just speaking, Dawn Staley, she understands it, she gets it, And of course, you know, we talk about coaching a lot, regardless of the sport. Of course, we talk a lot of football here, and we talked about players taking on the persona of their coach. And coaching is great. You got to have great coaching, but you can't do it without the Jimmys and the Joes, is what we're saying in football. I don't know what we'll say for the ladies here, but Aja Wilson from right here, Heathwood Hall High School, stayed at home, came to a team that was loaded already, and she is doing her thing. Another player of the week for her. That's her third captain. Talk about Aja Wilson and really what she means to this basketball team, and she's only a true freshman.
Yeah, and the one thing that helps is she's not being relied on. She's not being counted on by the rest of the team to carry the load. She's coming off the bench. So that relieves the pressure just a little bit. And, you know, oftentimes, we've seen this before. We've seen so many freshmen come in with the hype, with the fanfare, with the excitement, with the expectations. And very seldom do we see a freshman live up to those expectations.
Exactly.
Especially at this level.
Exactly.
Well, not only has she lived up to those expectations, she surpassed those expectations because Dawn Staley's done, again, a really, really good job of putting her in position to succeed, putting her right at that pinch post, that elbow area, allowing her to catch and shoot, catch, turn the face, make a play. And she's so difficult to guard because she can shoot the jump shot. She can dribble the basketball. She's good enough to make a play off the bounce. And at 6'5", playing amongst women, that's very difficult to defend. And we've seen that. So kudos to Dawn Staley for finding a way to maximize what she brings to the floor. But again, you have to give props to Aja Wilson for managing so many of the expectations, the excitement, and the fanfare. All of those things make it somewhat difficult for incoming freshmen to succeed, especially in year number one.
Yeah.
The transition overall is just a little bit too difficult.
No doubt about it. But speaking of Aja Wilson, very special. 6'5", dribble and drive, shoot the three, play point guard at Heathwood Hall. And, of course, I'm sure she can do that here at South Carolina. But those girls are doing great. And, of course, we continue to wait and see what they do down the stretch. When we come back, we'll talk news and notes with our very own Brian Hand of Spurs and Feathers. He'll take the captain's seat for a moment. He'll talk about that 16,000 at the CLA. That's coming up right after this timeout. It's time for our news and notes with Spurs and Feathers. Brian Hand. Talk about the men, because Brian, you were on the trip. Happy New Year, my friend.
Same to you, my friend.
Good to see you. First time I've seen you this year. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been forever.
No doubt about it. But since I saw you last year, you were on the plane and the flight to Brooklyn, hanging out with JC and Beyonce, doing your thing, right?
No, I got to hang out with Phil Collins. I mean, is that?
Oh, well, hey, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's something.
That's street cred.
Yeah, I don't know about street cred, but it was there. It was an interesting experience. It's always fun to travel with the team and see what they're doing.
Right.
And to have 3 days there in Brooklyn with the men's basketball team and kind of be behind the scenes. Really looking forward to the story that we have coming out tomorrow on SpursandFeathers.com, GamecocksOnline.com, and it'll be in our magazine at the end of the month. It kind of gives you what they go through on a trip. It's a little different because school's not in this time, but it was really interesting.
Well, Frank likes you. I hear him oftentimes refer to you first name basis, Brian, so you guys have got a good relationship.
I don't know about all that, but at least he knows my name.
Well, let's talk about that game, that trip. A huge win.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa State ranked. You go on the road, a neutral site game, and you would think it would be tough for the Gamecocks in that type of atmosphere, a top-ranked team, but they got it done. What was the atmosphere like?
It was, I'll say that I'll give total credit to Iowa State. They travel well. It's about 75-25 Iowa State fans to Gamecock fans, but the New York City Gamecock Club held a special event that evening. They had a lot of Gamecocks there. Frank talked to them.
You go to the Mason Jar?
They did, yeah. And then
nice.
we met at McMahon's Pub just outside of the arena, and Frank came over and talked to them in the interview room. So it was a really nice little treat for the New York City Gamecocks. And
Which represent very nice.
That's what I'm saying. They were loud and proud, and so it was really good to see. Like I said, there were a lot more Iowa State. It had the feel, and I said this after the game to Dwayne Notice and Sedarius Thornwell during the press conference, had the feel of an NCAA tournament game. It felt like a noon game, NCAA tournament, and to see them, where every possession matters, and to see them to be able to work through it was a really good thing.
No doubt about it. Of course, the Gamecocks, Brian, the votes came out today, the polls, I should say, a lot of folks were thinking maybe they sneak in that top 25, but they're on the outside looking in. And if you listen to Joe Lenardi, I should say he's a guy that's right most of the time. So they're close.
Yeah, they're close. They're in right now.
Right.
He has them playing in a play-in game in the 68-team field, number 11 against Xavier, which is, like you said, he missed like 1 or 2 last year. So the guy knows what he's talking about. They had 16 votes in the AP poll, 12 votes in the USA Today coaches poll, which would put him in the 30 to 35 range in both of them. That's probably where they need to be right now.
Right.
I mean, they're still earning their way up. If they take care of business against Florida and Ole Miss this week, they'll be in next week.
No doubt about it. Now let's switch gears. That's already in.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, they're leading the pack.
Yeah,
The Lady Gamecocks are number 1 for the 7th straight week. Don't study. The ladies continuing to get it done. 16,000 plus at the CLA for a women's basketball game. Unheard of around here.
Yeah, other than the first ever game there, which was against Clemson in South Carolina, back in the day, the most ever for a women's game in South Carolina. It's been a while since, the men have picked up those numbers, which I think you're going to see that kind of numbers for the men's game as well here out throughout the rest of the year. It's just great to see. People are really buying in. The thing that people always talk about is what Don Staley and Frank Martin have done for this community, and you're starting to see it with people coming in. Obviously, everybody likes a winner.
Right.
But they all also like to see the coaches really care about what's going on with basketball, not only in Columbia, but in the state, and that's what you have in Frank Martin and Don Staley.
They've done an outstanding job of putting their boots on, so to speak, getting out here, getting fans excited about basketball. Of course, it helps when you got some great basketball players like a local like A.J. Wilson, again, Player of the Week for her.
Oh, yeah.
That's 3. Elena Coates had 5 last year, right? So she's probably going to break that record.
I think you'd probably say she wouldn't just be the SEC Freshman of the Year.
Right.
I think you'd say she's probably the National Freshman of the Year up to this point in time. She's lived up to expectations. I know y'all were talking about it before, but she really has. She stepped in and done her job, and it's been great to see.
It is great to see. And of course, it's fun to watch and see them get so much praise, and it's worthy because they're doing so good. And Catherine was talking about it earlier about how do you keep them in check, so to speak, and Don State has done a really, really nice job of keeping them in check. This week coming up with Florida and the other games, so you expect crowds to continue to flow in?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm really hoping, after coming off the big Iowa State win, last time out, that Clemson game and then the Coker game, some good crowds. I'm really hoping that just like the women's, you start to see 15, 16,000 people coming to the men's game. Florida may have 6 losses already this year, but they've had a tough schedule. They may not be the Florida that won 18 games last year in the SEC, but it's still Florida. South Carolina needs all the support.
Program.
Yeah, they need all the support they can get.
No doubt about it. And he needs the support. For you to read that story, you find out what it is like being on the road with the men's basketball team. SpursandFeathers.com, at Spurs and Feathers. I'm sure you can get it on Twitter. And Brian, I had that out. That's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Check it out. You don't want to miss it. Brian, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little Florida games. We'll look at the matchup. The captain, he's got the breakdown. Stay tuned. All right, we've almost covered it all, but now it's time to take a look at some of the upcoming games for the men's basketball team and the women. Of course, Florida, the Gators are coming here to CLA on Wednesday. That's the game's at 7 o'clock. Then Saturday, January 10th at Ole Miss. On the road, the women, Thursday, January 8th, Alabama. And then Sunday, the 11th, versus Kentucky, which is going to be a very good basketball game, Cap. So when you look at these upcoming games for both teams, I have some challenges for both programs.
Certainly some challenges for both programs. I think the biggest challenge is for the South Carolina Gamecocks this Wednesday, playing against Florida. And a lot of people seem to be fooled by Florida's 7-6 record. And I'm here to tell you, don't be fooled.
I'm fooled.
And don't be fooled and don't get it twisted because they're still Florida and they still happen to have one of the best basketball coaches in all of America in Billy Donovan, one of the best in-game tacticians we have going right now. And they're well coached. And even though they've lost so much from last year, you can't count those guys out. And this is a tricky game for 2 reasons. South Carolina coming off of that really, really big win. They've never really experienced this type of success, even though I don't expect a letdown, so to speak. Right. I was over at practice today, and you would have thought those guys were just coming off of a very disappointing loss. Frank keeps those guys on edge, and he understands why he has to do it because his team is not really there. And also, Florida lost against UConn this weekend, and Billy Donovan kind of called his guys out a little bit after the game. He questioned their toughness, and that as an athlete, the 2 things you can't have questioned are your toughness and your work ethic.
Yeah.
And he questioned their toughness, and
That's a problem.
that's a problem. So
Yeah.
you expect almost a Herculean effort from Florida come Wednesday.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be basically because they lost, 4 out of the 5 starters? Maybe they got a young, immature team and trying to get them to play tough. Is that the case? Because, I mean, his teams are normally not, I'm going to say soft. That's what we use on football field. The toughness. No, you soft. I mean,
We use that on the basketball court also.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I was surprised by that. But really, they got some new players is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to call them soft.
Thank you. Thank you. But they do have new players.
Right.
And you know what? Oftentimes when you have new players that's coming into a winning tradition, certainly not saying this is the case, but I've heard Nick Saban talk about it. Maybe that sense of entitlement has set in. Hopefully that's not the case. But they're not the same basketball team regardless. And South Carolina isn't the same basketball team.
That's
South
true.
Carolina is playing with a lot of
For the
confidence.
right reason. They're not
For
saying
the
that.
right reason.
Right.
And I expect a huge crowd over at the CLA Wednesday night. And I feel really good about the Gamecocks getting it done.
Well, let me ask you this before we get out of here. A lot of times, and you kind of alluded to it just for a moment, when you have such a massive win, a top 10 team, and for guys, this team is still young. Can they get a little bit overconfident? How does Frank keep them focused? You heard in the piece that he was thinking about Florida already. I know he's ready, but what about the young players?
I think everybody's ready because it starts with the head coach. It starts with the head coach setting the tone. And after the game, and you go back and look at how those guys, the coaches that is, it wasn't a lot of celebrating for those guys. They got up and fist bumped and shook hands, and they made it onto the locker room, spoke to a couple of guys that were in the locker room. And it was all about Florida. It was all about Florida after that game. And again, I was over at practice today. You don't have to worry about if they lose. It won't be because those guys had a letdown in practice.
I don't think
I can guarantee you that.
I don't think Frank's gonna let them kind of scale down.
He had him on the edge today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff. I just want to throw a quick shout out to my good friend and his family. Of course, my thoughts and prayers we go out to Stuart Scott. One of the best. Matter of fact, why I'm in this business, I know we talked about it earlier today, Captain, why we love being in this business, how he changed this business of sports. And, of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Scott family. So I wanted to say that. Don't forget, Thursday night, follow and watch Fox News at 10. It's the overtime. High school basketball, the only one in the Millers. You don't want to miss that on Thursday night. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Thursday.